The Overwhelm is Optional podcast is for you if you want to quit the struggle with overwhelm. You want to live life to the full. You don't want to compromise your health and relationships in order to have well-paid, satisfying, meaningful work. You want it all on your terms. Hello, are you drowning in all the digital opportunities in your life? All the podcasts? Yes, including this one, all the episodes you've yet to listen to, all the digital articles, the blogs, all of the music, all of the books, Kindle overwhelm, all of the social media, the nourishing bits, the stuff that you know adds to your day, the YouTube videos that inspire you, show you how to do something differently, all of those TED Talks that you really ought to listen to because they just be so good. Are you drowning in all of the wonders of the digital age? And it's not getting any better, is it? Because it's just more and more stuff being produced. So what to do? Well, it's all good stuff. It's all good stuff. So we're not talking about the stuff that, like the news, which is predominantly not particularly healthy or often even not that informative. And I'm not suggesting you need to listen to my why not to listen to the news episode, which was about 2 years ago, I think. So there's research on listening to the news, watching the news. Being up to date with current affairs is completely possible without drowning in the misery of the news. But I don't want to go into that in this episode. I'm talking about, so if we just dump the stuff that you feel you ought to have but makes you feel miserable, so we just dump that for this episode and just focus on the absolute overwhelm of all of the good stuff, the stuff that you know would nourish you. So I know I'm part of this. So for example, I did the free turn of the year pause series as we did 2021 into 2022, and a lot of people have used that and benefited from it. I bet the majority of people didn't finish it. I just think that's highly likely. There were 4 episodes, they were quite short, but it's a big commitment. And that's okay, because I believe that just listening to one of those episodes is going to have some impact. Because where I'm coming from is you already have everything you need. So if you take all of the good stuff, now this is hilarious, isn't it? Because here I am, my work is to flood the world with a podcast that lifts and inspires you, with words, with posts on Instagram, with video, with workshops, with my courses and programs and my coaching. So it's to lead you to helping yourself to either do stuff on your own or to ultimately work with me. So for me, everything I put out in the world, I want to come from the intention to lift and inspire. But I'm also aware that, you can get into I really ought to listen to Heidi's podcast, and then it becomes a pressure. So how do we switch it back? Because me being able to gift you this podcast episode for free, that lifts your day and changes the way you move through your day, that unclogs your mind from overwhelm, that's magical. There is no doubt that's magical. This would be, I don't know how else I could have done this not that many years ago. So there were no podcasts when I was growing up. So I guess I would have had to be invited onto a radio program, or I guess there were those taped audio courses, weren't there, and CD courses, but that would have to be published and shipped to you. And it's just so different now. Podcasting to me is magical. I get to speak words from my heart to yours. And that's a gift. That's magical. So the first step in this is realise what's going on. So notice if you are feeling pressured by all of the opportunities, the digital, the good stuff, the podcasts, the articles, the music, the movement classes, the interviews, all of it. Just for a moment, just notice how much you're feeling kind of like this backlog in your mind that's going over and over. I really ought to listen, watch, absorb, read that. And just notice that's a start from where you are. We always start from where we are. And then notice it neutrally. So what you might notice is as you become aware of how much you keep meaning to listen to things or watch things or read things, that on top of that, there's a layer of judgment or criticism of yourself for not having got around to it. So I notice with me, probably my biggest one that's nagging me at the moment is music. So I ought to listen. I'm paying for Spotify, so I ought to listen to it more often. But because I no longer have a commute, I tend not to listen to Spotify. And because I love podcasts, I'm going to prioritize a podcast that's backed up, because you can never listen to them all, over music. And yet I know that if I get the right music at the right time, it completely lifts my spirits and I'm likely to dance and sing, and that's really good. But I also get really nourished by words. So for me, there's that conflict there, and there isn't enough time to do both. So that's one of the things that I notice nags me, and I can see already talking to you now that I've let go of it a lot, because I'm not that worried about it. It's like, yeah, I could listen to music more. And I also relish silence. So often I plan to listen to words or music at a certain time, and then I put it on and it feels wrong. Even if it's really nourishing, it just feels wrong, and I just switch it off. And then there's this silence, and my whole system just releases into that silence, and I feel a sense of expansiveness in that silence. And that's magical. So I guess, starting where you are, what's going on for you? Are you feeling pressured about all of the magical digital opportunities for learning, growing, and feeling good? And if so, would you like to do something about it? Let's do it. So you start where you are, you notice what's going on, you notice any judgment, you notice whether it's added to your to-do list or you'll get better at list, because we're always stuck in this, I ought to do more and be better. So just notice if that's going on for you. And then you can decide, okay, what do you want? Do you want the magic of the digital age, or do you want the pressure? You get to choose. But obviously it's a practice. So the first step is awareness. Awareness is powerful. As one of the amazing people inside my program, Get Your Life Back, stated in a testimonial to help you decide whether or not to join, what is seen cannot be unseen. So that's when we have those aha moments. Yes, that's me. And then that can't be unseen, and it's so powerful. Awareness is so undervalued. We think we need to do things to change. We often need to do nothing. In fact, mainly we want to do less, which is great because, you haven't got any time and energy and you're feeling really overwhelmed. Your mind's really clogged up. Oh, I get to not do things. Brilliant. So awareness is so damn powerful, and it's also very personal, and it also tends to go straight to your heart, even if you don't notice that, but it tends to just ripple out. So it's like and then you get greater realizations because awareness is subconscious, and then it becomes embodied if you allow it to. It ripples and it takes care of itself. You draw your attention to seeing something in a different way, and then you tend to see other things in a different way, and it compounds. So it's like it literally is a spark that starts that magical fire of re-energizing and getting back in touch with your purpose and who you are and what the hell you're supposed to be doing. And by supposed, I mean what would really make you happy, rather than all the stuff you're having feel like you have to do, because there is a difference. But I don't want to go into that. I want to stick with this. So how do we go from the the magic of the digital age feeling like a pressure to it feeling magical again. Well, it's not going to happen in one go. So it'll happen in gradual bits, and that's okay, because tiny changes are better because they're easier and they become embedded, which is what we want. So a big change like a sudden transformation at a retreat is not, it feels very powerful at the time, and it can be really, really powerful, but it's the tiny changes afterwards that are the real solid stuff. So never be thinking I ought to do something big when you're exhausted and fed up and overwhelmed. Don't fall into the trap of thinking you have to make big changes. You really don't. I always teach tiny changes that lead to you deciding if you want to implement a bigger change. Bigger changes cause so much disruption and tend to add to our overwhelm and our exhaustion. So tiny changes. So just seeing a little bit. So already think back. I've been talking for 10 minutes. What aha moment have you had? So maybe even me just saying to you, are you feeling really overwhelmed by all of the opportunities in the digital age? If that's already made you go, yes, I am, Heidi, then congratulations, because just that will change your life. Because first of all, you can see something that you didn't realize. So, part of my overwhelm and pressure is coming from that. Oh, well, that means I can do something about it. But then I've said, but you don't have to do anything. You just have to notice it. You just not even have to. You get to notice it. You get to see it. And secondly, I'm talking about it. And that means it's not just you. So the second thing is that emotional release of, thank God, it's not just me. Oh my God, I thought it was just me. It's so wonderful, isn't it? You are not alone. It's not just you. It's not a weakness. It's not a weakness. It's real. It's bonkers. But let's not start moaning. It's very easy, isn't it, when we get overwhelmed to dream of like a weekend where we switch off all our devices and then everything will be magical. And yes, I do advocate an occasional digital detox. Absolutely. Because it's like going without chocolate for a bit. You get control over the impulse to eat the chocolate. You get back some control. But that's a disciplined big thing. It's a big thing to do. It involves, switching your internet off. It's just a big deal, right? So let's make it tiny. Let's make it easy. So you get to choose whether you feel pressured or you get back the magic, and you can do it in tiny ways. So firstly, let's look at how magical it is. Let's celebrate the fact that we don't have to go back in time to get our lives back, to feel less overwhelmed by this. Let's just celebrate how amazing it is. So the fact that you can at any moment, well, the fact that you're listening to this podcast is really easy. So celebrate that, be grateful, have gratitude for that. And then music, the fact that you don't have to do all of that stuff I used to as a teenager. You get a new album from Woolworths and then you tape it so you can listen to it in the car, and also because you don't want to keep playing your vinyl because you only want to play it once while you tape it. And then making all those mixtapes and then having to forward past the song on the album that makes you feel really miserable because actually you were really enjoying singing loudly in the car, and then the tape gets all chewed up in the car stereo, and now you've got to you've got to sing without the music. Oh, the tape's broken and now you've lost that forever. Seriously. And then came the iPad and the iPod. Mine's still in my car somewhere, and it's got tons of stuff on it. And that was amazing because you could find what you wanted to listen to. And now you literally it's even faster. So it is pretty incredible that a song can come to mind and you just press the button and you get to listen to it. You get instant dancing. And that's really, really cool if you feel it as magical. And the feeling it as magical requires the intention to see it as magical. And that is a gratitude practice. That's a different way of looking at things. So I guess what I'm saying is, instead of thinking, oh my God, I have to listen to all of this music because it's amazing and all the reasons behind it, get out of your head into the body. Feel your feet on the ground. Just imagine a song that would soothe you right now. Or you can just literally press soothing songs. And some algorithm's going to suggest something you either like or don't like. Or you can send a song to a friend. I love that. You can send a song to a friend. How magic. I mean, it's all so magical, isn't it? There is so much magic there. So the fact that you have at your fingertips the ability to hear inspirational top speakers from across the other side of the planet talking for free in a TED Talk is magical. The fact that you can have a tiny little device called a Kindle with your whole library of books on it, so that next time you go on holiday, you don't think, oh, I have to carry all these books. The fact that you can read samples on I ended up with sample overwhelm because you can get Kindle samples, but it's great having a sample because you don't have to buy the book. You can just read the sample. You can know if you resonate with the way the author is speaking before you decide. And that's really helpful because that to me reduces my overwhelm. But it depends how I look at it. So if I look at it and think, oh my God, there's 50 book samples on my Kindle, then I can go, oh my God, now I've got to go through all of these book samples. And then I can feel heavy and overwhelmed, and I really ought to spend some time because all of those things would be good for me. And I was inspired at the time, or they wouldn't be on there, murmur, nag. Or I can go, oh, good, I'm just going to, for fun, press on that sample. I have no idea why I wanted to download it the first time, but let's just try it and just see. There's just different ways of looking at it. So I think I know that first of all, tapping into the magic of it, the joy of it is really important. Having gratitude for the digital age, having gratitude for being here at this point in history, however bonkers it feels at the moment, because there's a lot of change going on and it can be difficult to negotiate anything online because everything's moving so quickly and there's some bizarre stuff going on, stuff that doesn't make sense. So much change going on. And it can feel like, well, I know it does for me sometimes, like, why am I here at this point in history? This is really hard to negotiate. Well, it's also a really magical time. Remembering the magic really matters. Secondly, where's the pressure coming from? So who is telling you that you ought to be reading all those books, all those articles, watching all those videos, listening to all those podcasts? Who is telling you? Is it somebody other than yourself or not? Because if it's you, well, that's really good news because you get to choose. You're in charge of you. So if you're nagging yourself, you're putting pressure on yourself. Stop doing that. That's really mean. You wouldn't do that to somebody else. It doesn't work anyway, does it? If you have a friend and you think, oh, they really ought to read that book, and you keep going on and on about this damn book because you think it would help them, they're not going to read it in the end. Because you're just annoying them, because you're putting pressure on them, and they're quite rightly resisting that pressure. We're much better at resisting and rebelling against pressure from other people and getting cross with that person than we are with ourselves. So if you're putting pressure on yourself, stop it. Don't be so mean. It's really mean. It's really naggy. It's really bashy. How do you stop putting pressure on yourself though, Heidi? It's easier said than done. Yes, it is. I've got you there as well. So if you start from the basis that there's nothing wrong with you and that you don't need any of the information, like literally, if you took your entire backlog of podcast episodes, yes, including mine, if you took absolutely everything, if you wiped your Kindle clean, if you deleted all of the saved tabs, if you deleted all your email and disconnected from Spotify and YouTube, and chucked out all your books, like literally, if you just decided, I'm letting go of all of this pressure, I'm not going to listen, read, watch any of this. I'm not suggesting that you do, I'm just saying if you did, it wouldn't change anything. You would still be the person you are. You would still, and by that I mean the person who has everything they need. Because it's an inside job. And yes, I know that a lot of the stuff that you want to read is to help you. I get that. I really, really do. And of course I do, because it's my work. I'm in personal development. I'm not saying that there isn't useful stuff. I know my podcast makes people feel better, shifts perspectives, gives tools to genuinely help and to heal. That's my work, my ever-evolving work. But I still believe, and this is what happens at the end of the 12-week boot camp part of Get Your Life Back, is I remind everybody, you already had everything you need inside you. You just couldn't access it. And this is the thing, isn't it? We get blocked from our own strength, our own ability to heal ourselves, to sort ourselves out. We get blocked from that just because of, for lots of reasons. So for you and me, it comes from that. I want to live life to the full. And because I want to live life to the full, I want to read all the books, do all of the things, nourish myself in all these different ways. I don't want to miss any opportunities. And at the same time, we really want to make the world a better place in our own small way. So we want to help people. So we end up with exhaustion, overwhelm, and going around in a circle of like, well, I'm not quitting. I still want to live my life to the full, but this isn't working and I don't know what to do about it. And then we start searching for answers. And that's where a lot of the digital overwhelm I know comes from for me is, well, I really ought to do that course, that free challenge. You know, I ought to read that book. I ought to listen to that podcast. I ought to. That's where it's coming from. And it's not good or bad. It just is. And as soon as you recognize that about yourself, that you have a tendency to easily get stuck in your head trying to work out how to have the full life that you desperately want, thinking that you need to do more and be better. Actually, what you need is to love and accept yourself, because there's nothing wrong with you. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't want to ask for help. Quite the opposite. It is faster, more convenient. It's just a damn good idea to ask for help. So that brings you back into, so therefore, Heidi, how do I interact with all these things that I think might help me? Well, you have to change how you're doing it. So it's always about changing the how, not the what. First of all, would it be physically possible for you to listen to all the podcasts, read all the articles and all the books and watch all of the things you want to do? No, it wouldn't. And why not? Well, not just because you've already, in the digital age, it's just too intense. So there's already not enough time left probably in your entire life. But also because at the same time, you're bringing in more stuff. So it's a rabbit hole, isn't it? You read one book and you love it. And you're like, oh, I'm so grateful to this person for writing this book. This has come at just the right time. And then that takes you to another book, or it takes you to their podcast, or it takes you to their course. And then you've got more, but you've still got the stuff that you were going to read as well. So the thing is, like your to-do list and you'll get better at list, there isn't an end to it. So when we mistakenly look to the end of something in order to have what we're seeking, so we want to reach the end of our to-do list so that then we can rest and have peace of mind. But the peace of mind and the rest isn't at the end of the to-do list, because if it's a really big to-do list, which is likely to be, because we all overestimate how much we can achieve in a day. And you don't know what's going to happen, like stuff breaks, you have a slow day, you have a fast day, like you can't predict how long that's going to take. You just we're all making stuff up. I've got this to-do list, yeah, whatever. And we it's like when you work for somebody else and they expect you to do something. It's like, well, it doesn't happen that fast. You don't understand. And when you have a manager who doesn't listen, it's like, well, what you've asked me to do is physically impossible. And that's when the burnout and the sacrifice of health and relationships come, because you're desperate to please that person and progress and do well in that job. So then you bust a gut trying to do something which isn't actually possible. We can't keep looking for completion of things in order to have what we want, which is this happiness, this sense of fulfillment. That has to come now. That's up to you and me. That's an inside job. That's right. Today I choose to be happy. Today I choose to find enjoyment in the things that I feel I ought to do, And also things like accepting that it's impossible. So therefore I'm going to choose. And I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's really not. And it's far too big a topic. I can't teach all of this stuff via podcast, and it wouldn't help anyway, because you wouldn't listen to every episode, you'd miss bits. And this is what we do inside Get Your Life Back. This is why I've put it into a program, because this is deep work, and it takes commitment, consistency, support, the right tools. I'm not going to teach this on a podcast. So it's big stuff. But for you today, you can definitely do something to turn this digital overwhelm back into magical. Except that there's no way you can listen to it all. And that also, I like the idea. So I think it's Tim Ferriss said about reading things just in time rather than just in case. So when you think, well, I ought to read that because I need to know that, as opposed to right now I really need to know this, somebody tell me. There's a difference, isn't there? So a lot of the time, and it's understandable, and sometimes it's sensible, sometimes it's not, we want to preempt and prevent a future minor disaster. So therefore we read this now. And the problem is there's this, we're bombarded with this, aren't we? Like insurance is about that. So you must take out this insurance, and then you buy the insurance to protect you against something. But then there's this nagging anxiety that you've done something wrong. And then if something actually happened, you need the insurance, they're going to say, well, you didn't do that. It's like, well, and it's so damn stressful. Our minds are just being pulled in so many different directions about how if we don't follow the rules, if we don't behave in a certain way, if we don't do certain things and remember to do all these things, then there's just going to be disaster after disaster after disaster. And then we're caught up in the preempting of the disaster rather than the living. So the point of insurance is to give you peace of mind, but often it doesn't, because there's this whole, I'm not going to pay out because of blah, blah, blah. It's just boring. It's just it doesn't work. I don't know if it's working for you, but all that kind of crap isn't working for me. That constant messaging of anxiety, where it causes anxiety in me, and I don't want it. I'm not interested. That's not how I'm prepared to live my life anymore. So for me, I'm often filtering out things that become fear-driven, anxiety-driven. If I'm doing something out of fear, I ought, and this is tiny fear, right? This isn't like big, scary fear, but it can feel really big. Actually, I don't know if it's big or small. That's none of my business. It's your business. So if you feel like I really ought to read that or watch that, or else this will happen, and it feels like this real, like fear-driven, anxiety-driven or something, that's not good. Like, that's not fun. Don't do that. Pick the stuff that feels nourishing. Turn it around. You get to choose. You get to choose, and you're in charge. And I think it's that's really important. I bet most of the pressure is coming from you. So take back control. And this is how I want you to think about it, because I think this is really, really helpful. So imagine this instead. Life is a series of adventures, big adventures and mini adventures. Oh, I'm just thinking about those cool. Do you remember the mini adventure ads that were in the cinema about 15 years ago? It's a mini adventure, and you had to guess what the adventure was. I was rubbish at deciding what these are, but I thought they were fun. Anyway, sorry, back to life is a series of adventures and mini adventures. And once we start to see it as a series of adventures instead of a problem to be solved, full of missed opportunities and mistakes, then we change the game. We change the way we see it. It becomes a game. So if you think about the digital magical opportunities, the endless, limitless ones, instead of seeing them as I need all of them, or I need a large section of them in order to live my life well, to be the person I want to be, which is honourable and great, but it's not much fun doing it that way. So if we change the how into, you walk into an adventure shop, like an adventure equipment shop. Now in my head, there's mountains outside, and there's like cross-country skis and all these like walking poles and tents and like ski buggies and I don't know, reindeer harnesses and like, I don't know, this is where I am. I guess also we'd need a shop that also sold all of the summer adventure things. But anyway, just imagine an adventure equipment shop, and whatever comes to mind is your adventure equipment shop. So the digital world, with all of its opportunities, is like that shop. And on the day that you walk into that shop, you've got an adventure in mind, or maybe you haven't got an adventure in mind. It doesn't matter. Like, you're not going to take the entire shop of equipment with you, because it's not going to work, right? You're going to go, today I want to go on a reindeer sledge kind of adventure. So I'm going to need reindeer harnesses, a sledge, warm clothes, lots and lots of thermal stuff in my case. I really like those fur boots, and I want a really cool hat, really good gloves, blah, blah, blah. Like all the things that you need. Are you staying overnight? Are you going to camp? Is it a mini adventure, or is it like a bigger adventure? You get to decide, but you're not going to take the ski buggy or the cross-country skis with the reindeer if you're only going on the reindeer thing today. Like, why? Like, it's just going to hold up the reindeer, and that's what's happening. Like, when we get overwhelmed and we're drowning in all of the amazing stuff in the digital world, and there's so much incredible stuff. And I'm really, really grateful for every single person who has put words that have healed and inspired me, who have run courses that are free or paid for that I have done, for all the mentors and coaching and the people putting their unique stuff out into the world. I am so grateful for all the books I've read and all of it. But when I try and do it all, I lose the sense of who I am, the adventure that I really want to go on today at this moment in time. Because what I've learned is there isn't one right adventure. There's many, and you get to choose. And how we go through that adventure matters, because when we're completely present and loving and enjoying that adventure, that's it. That's where the fullness of life is. It's not in trying to do all of the adventures. It is in living each adventure, big or small, fully, enjoying it, changing how, making enjoyment the priority over cramming everything in. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Today's episode was actually a request episode, which I'm really, really excited that these are starting to come in. If you've got something you want me to kind of give my thoughts about on, then just email me, heidi@heidimark.co.uk. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If this resonates with you, please use the like, subscribe and share buttons to help other people find their way here too. And please do go to www.heidimark.co.uk/the 1 minute mark with an E to join my mailing list and receive my free 1 minute life-changing audio practice.